My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. What does it make you think of when you look at an American flag? For me, I think of being in grade school, standing, saying the pledge every morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Maybe it makes you think of your time in service. Maybe the solemn day that you watched a flag draped across the coffin of a loved one or a family member. Perhaps it takes your heart and mind to a darker place, like inequality or slavery or racism. It's your right to think and attach emotions to whatever you want to. I will tell you that it's extremely ironic and moronic, in my opinion, to somehow look at this beautiful flag and all she stands for and say that it stands for racism or slavery. You see, we can't judge history through the optics of what we know today, the optic meaning the knowledge that we have today, just as we can't look at a science book or a medical journal from 200 years ago and say they were stupid. They knew what they knew, just as we know what we know. And as such, we are judged by our actions by what we know this day. I'm not saying some of the things that happened in our history were not wrong, but they're wrong by what we know this day. Do you understand? On that note, the kinds of things that happened in this country have happened all over the globe for all of humankind's time, which is pretty interesting. Yet people hold us to a higher standard. And here's why. I've thought about this in depth the last couple of days as I thought about this video. You see, the great nations of the world that had power and might, they all enslaved people. They took lands. They were warring in one way, shape, or form. Yet they're not judged in the same fashion that we are. And I thought about this over and over, and I thought, why? And the reason is, it's because people look with a critical eye, looking for hypocrisy. That's what we do. We look so we could say, hey, you're doing the opposite of what you say. Well, when our declaration is stating liberty and freedom, yet we see something that looks contrary, we want to say, hey, it's hypocritical. When in reality, we cannot, because this flag has created a birth of freedom and liberty that the world has never seen. For most of time, man has been ruled by chiefs, by kings, by queens, by dictators, with iron fists, some of them. Until the men came along that put this together. That should move your guts. You know, those guys, when they sat down and did this, most of them knew they would never fully reap the benefits of what that flag represented. Most of them knew they would never see the end result. Would you go to work to not get a paycheck? Would you pay into a 401k or an IRA that you never got a benefit from? Would you get a life insurance policy that your family didn't get a payout on? No, of course you wouldn't. But those guys did. Those 56 men that signed that declaration knew we'll never really truly see what this will become. And they did it anyway. To me, that's nothing short of pure, unadulterated love. Love, pure and simple. Not even love of country, but love of the idea of freedom. That should stir your guts. It's not even freedom for themselves, but the idea that somewhere at some indeterminate point in history, people that live here on this soil could do as they saw fit. That's heavy. That's heavy. Yet today we want to pound our chest and complain because we don't have gun rights. There's no such thing as gun rights. We have the Second Amendment. You don't have a right to own a Glock 17 Gen 5. You have a right to keep and bear arms. Do you understand? We, the people, have allowed our laws to be categorized and quantified and chopped up and sput out and put in every different manner possible. We don't have gun laws. We have the Second Amendment. That's a fact. Oh, but Mickey, it was freer back in the day. No, it wasn't. We have more freedom with owning arms today than ever in history. Well, what about the such and such law? Or what about this? Or what about the ATF? Nope. There was no concealed carry or even open carry laws for most of the history of this country. If you don't believe me, do some history research and you'll see it. But Mick, they owe it to me. Nobody owes you shit. You were born. Your parents, whoever they are, good, bad, right, or wrong, came together and a spark of life happened and you're alive today. Period. What are you going to do with it? If you were lucky enough, plain and simple, lucky enough to be born on this soil, you've got the best chance ever in the history of mankind to have the best life possible. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do to protect and promote and proliferate freedom so that those that come after you will get the same free chance that you got, the same free chance that I got? That's heavy, man. I want to read to you something John Adams said. John Adams, one of the signers of the Declaration. I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations. That's us. As the great anniversary festival. We call it July 4th, Independence Day. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shoes, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations. From one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward and forevermore. You will think me transported with enthusiasm, but I am not. He's literally saying, you might think I've lost my marbles because I'm so excited. I'm well aware of the toil and the blood and the treasure that it will cost us to maintain this declaration and support and defend these states. Yet through all the gloom, I can see the rays of ravishing light and glory. I can see that the end is more than worth all the means, and that posterity will triumph in that day's transaction. Even although we should rue it, which I trust in God we shall not. Check this out. I am well aware of the toil, blood, and treasure that it will cost us to maintain this declaration. He knew that when they signed that document, which was August 2nd, 1776, that they actually all signed it, he knew this document is a piece of paper. It's just a piece of paper. We must put blood, in sweat, in money into it. You dig? And they did. And he knew we would have to do it today. What are you willing to do to protect and proliferate and promote freedom? You want to post cute shit on your Instagram account? Do you want to maybe hang a little flag in your yard and drink some beers and say, woohoo? Or are you willing to do something about it? What are you willing to do to make sure that this day continues so that the people that come after you will reap the same amazing benefits that you did and that I did and that we didn't deserve but were lucky enough to be born in? That's all I got, friends. On this day, let us be grateful. On this day, we should rue it. You know what he meant by that? He was basically saying, it ain't gonna happen. We will not fail. On this day, let us not fail in keeping it alive. Might sound like I'm being a little corny, and if that's what you see, I don't think you understand the totality of what we actually have been given. Never in the history of mankind. We've got it right here. What do you see? Do you see cloth and ink? It's not what I see.